Right, well, where shall we start this afternoon? I think, first of all, what we're going to do is start, Paul Merson, with Newcastle United and the situation concerning Sandro Tonali, and also Nicolo Zaniolo is also under investigation for illegal betting during the time at AC Milan. They're under investigation by the Italian Prosecution Office and the Italian Football Federation as well. Paul, understandably, you've been fairly outspoken about this over the last few days in terms of what happens to Tonali. You've called for understanding rather than condemnation, for FIFA not to punish him too heavily. Are we, when we see cases like this, particularly with Sandro Tonali, of being too quick to condemn and not quick enough to understand?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I know there's rules. I know that there's rules in place. I understand if you're playing in a football match and you're betting against the other team to beat your team, and then I don't see any way out of that. I think that's a ban for, I dread to think how long. But this is an illness. It's the worst illness I've got personally, out of the drink, the drugs and the gambling. This is the one that I find harder than anything. And it's an illness. People need to understand that. If he was drinking or taking drugs, he'd be put in a treatment centre. Then he would be tested like I was when I'd be tested every now and then. They would come to the ground and they would test you all the time without telling you. But with gambling, it's like, bang, just stop. You know, you shouldn't be gambling. You earn a lot of money. It's an illness. You stop throwing fines. Stop throwing massive bans out. You know, these people need to play football. That's their living. You know, they have an illness. They don't do it on purpose. Don't do it on purpose. And for me, we need to understand that. We need to understand that people think because you don't put anything in your body, that just stop it with willpower. You can't stop it with willpower. It's not that kind. It's not like that. You know, I always say next time you get the runs, try and stop that with willpower. You know, you can't. So don't try and stop it with this. And for me, they need to be understanding. Again, like the Ivan Toney one, Brentford get punished. Brentford missed their best player by a million miles for 8, 9, 10 months. You know, he wasn't even at Brentford. You know, it's like this man, Tonali now, he was at AC Milan. Who's going to get punished? Newcastle getting punished as well. You know, let's weigh it up here. You know, for me, get the lad help and get him back playing football again. And for anybody, if there's a young kid out there, and this is the way I look at it, if there's a young kid out there who's struggling like mad with a gambling addiction, how can he come out and ask for help? He cannot come out and ask for help because he's going to get a ban. You know, and some of these players might not be on 100 grand a week. They might have to pay their mortgage, or they might be chasing to pay their mortgage. This needs to stop. We need to sit down with these people and get them to understand, stop throwing bans out.
Just speaking from your own experience, how do you know if this is someone, I'm not speaking about Tonali in particular, just across the board, how do you tell the difference between someone having a bet every now and again and somebody who's got a serious problem addiction-wise?
Well, they'll be able to tell that by their patterns of gambling, by their patterns when they go and get where they were betting, what platforms they were betting on. As soon as they look at that, they'll be able to tell straight away. They'll be able to tell straight away by the patterns of how they've gambled, what they're gambling on, how quickly they're gambling after the next bet, you know, and that's how they'll find out. But even if he's just casually having a bet, you know, and he's not an addict, you know, he's not a compulsive gambler, it still doesn't mean you should ban him. You know, then you should say, all right, you've made a mistake. These bans, and, you know, I'm thinking of the kids out there that are struggling, who are not playing in the Premier League, who are not on 100 grand a week. You know, if Tonali gets a 9-month ban, which I hope he doesn't, like I didn't want Tony to get a ban.
What would be appropriate? Because there has to be something that stops others following a similar route in terms of punishment.
I think a fine. I think a hefty fine for these people. You know, Newcastle are going to get punished. They're going to miss a top player. You know, they still have to pay his 100 grand a week. They won't not be able to pay his 100 grand a week. You know, so for me, they need to get help. And I keep on saying, I go back to it. These players on 100 grand, there's players in the lower leagues who are struggling, who need to pay their mortgage, not on 10, 5, 7,000 pound a week, on probably 5, 6, 700 quid a week. If they need help, they can't come out. Because if they come out, they'll get banned and they're finished. The club will let them go. You know, if Tonali weren't a Rolls Royce and they paid 55 million for him and he was coming towards the end of his contract and he wasn't very good, Newcastle would just say, see you later, bye-bye. And this is the problem. You know, they've got to understand this is an illness, it's an addiction. It's like drink, it's like drugs. It's a big addiction. Start respecting it. The FIFA, Premier League, everybody. you know, start showing this some respect, because this is a big addiction.
He's the best man to talk about it, man. He's been through it, because I'll be honest with you, when I first look at it and I used to think, why do these people bet? Why do you, I don't like betting. I don't know if Tim or Sue or Dawes like betting. I don't like betting because I've always had it in my head, and I've come from hardly anything. So when I make money, I don't want to lose it.
You don't want to lose it.
I don't want to lose it. So I've always said I'm going to keep it and keep my money so I can look after myself and my family. I don't want to bet. But when I spoke to Merson about it, it's an addiction. So you don't punish them. You get these people help. So if it's an addiction, it's a big addiction. You've got to help them. And it's not until I spoke to Merce that I realised why these people do it. Because I always used to think, why are you betting? And when you're betting, and then I feel you're playing catch-up. But it's not playing catch-up because you've lost. It's because it's an addiction. So I'm not one for betting, but I totally understand. And I think he's just hit the nail on the head. The way he's just explained it like that, I think it's perfect. These people need help. And he's the best man to help people because he's been in that situation. He's suffered massively through this situations like that. But he's here at the other side and he comes and tells his story. I think it's brilliant. He's the most honest person and can tell you about the situations because he's had to deal with it. Big things that he's had to deal with in his life. And it's an addiction. And we all know Merce here and he's come out the other side. So these people need help. Don't throw the book at them. Help them. He's got help and he's fine.
If I was playing now and it would have been no different. I would have been addicted like I was then, like I am now, an addict. If I were compulsive gambling now, the last thing I want's a ban. Imagine saying to someone like me, here's a 9-month ban, you're on 100 grand a week. How's that going to help you?
But he was betting on his own team. I totally understand what you're saying.
I understand. He's betting on his own team. He was betting on his own team. You know, his own team. I say, you know, if you're betting on the other team to win and you're playing in that game and then I'm going, I can't help you here. You know, I can't help you. I can't even say anything. You're betting against your team. That's cheating at the highest level. That throws the game into disrepute, and that's a no-go. I wouldn't even entertain it. He's betting on his team to win. He's betting on his team. He thinks his team are going to win. You know, show this respect, you know, show this illness and respect. More people die from this illness committing suicide than any other addiction. So start showing it respect.
And those reports that he was betting on his own team is exactly what the Italian Football Federation are looking into at the moment. Tim, Roy Hodgson was inevitably asked about this because it's Crystal Palace who visit Newcastle United today in the 3 o'clock kickoff in the Premier League. And Roy Hodgson says football has a gambling problem. Do you agree?
Well, I don't know. Obviously, one's enough. I mean, two's too many. We know about 3 in the Premier League now, don't we? 3 boys who are going to need help, are going to get hefty bans, as we just spoke about. So, yeah, I mean, these boys earn a lot of money from a very young age. Gone are the days when we used to finish training, we used to go down the pub and play darts and snooker or whatever and try and keep ourselves occupied. Not the healthiest way to do it, I know, but I think now, you know, with so much money flushing around, they go to the betting shop, they sit in front of the TV, they're on the social media, they're on their phones, and they're looking for something to interest them, keep them occupied. And I think it's far too easy these days to gamble on anything all around the world, 24/7 as well. So I don't know how you stop that. Obviously, Mercy's obviously well equipped to give his opinion. He's talking from a very high ground there of someone who's experienced it. It is difficult to police. I don't think by having these hefty bans it's a deterrent. I really don't. I think it's an illness, as they said, the boys. And if you're gambling, it's just because there's a hefty ban at the end of it or a hefty fine. I don't think it's a deterrent. It's something what they need, and they need help for it, and they need it as quick as possible. Now, whether that's like Roy Hodgson saying, a problem within the Premier League or within football. Only time will tell when more and more of them get found out.
And it's true. If you're a compulsive gambler, you don't sit there and go, oh my God, if I get caught, I'm going to get banned. You know, I've had money to pay my rent, and I've chose to gamble instead of pay my rent. You know, I won the league in '91, and I didn't even have carpet. I chose to gamble instead of put carpet on the floor. So it's not like you're aware. That thinking doesn't come when you're a compulsive gambler. You don't rationale things. You don't rationale. So when they're putting their bets on, they're not sitting there thinking, if I get caught here, I'm going to get banned for 9 months. It doesn't come into it, and that's why it's an illness. The brain thinks different to other people's. You know, other people can gamble. Of course they can. You know, I'd never come up here and sit on here and say ban gambling for life, because people can gamble. People can gamble, but there's people that can't gamble, and we have to understand and we have to help them people, not punishing them for an illness that they've got that they didn't beg for.
Well, it's the same thing when it comes to something like alcohol, isn't it? Some people say, why can't you just have one? But for some, as I know from my own experience, it just doesn't work. Final question on this, Dawes. I mean, it's a difficult situation, this, for Eddie Howe, isn't it? On the one hand, the care of his own player, and I thought in his press conference yesterday, he was excellent on Tonali about talking about wanting to help him, understanding that we're all human, we all have our weaknesses. But on the other hand, from a club point of view, they're looking at this and going, well, how much did AC Milan know about this ahead of selling him?
Yeah, I mean, look, I love listening to Eddie, and I was the same. I echo everything that the guys have said there. Eddie's situation now is, how do we look after him? And then how do I get the best out of him on the football pitch? Because ultimately they paid a lot of money for him from Milan, and then he comes and they'll go, I'm having to deal with this situation. It's not a nice one. But Eddie's a clever manager. I mean, it'd be interesting to see today if he's going to play. I'm sat home thinking, do you put him out to play? Do you put him on the bench? Where do you?
What do you think he'll do?
I mean, look, he hasn't started every game anyway.
No.
So it's probably easy just to say, look, keep you on the bench. But then you go, look, I'm going to stick with you. Sandro, I'm going to put you out there, go and show everyone, look, you want to play football. And we've got to go back, I don't think people are going to be sat home going, these guys are earning over £100,000 a week. Why would you gamble? And people at home who don't gamble will be saying that.
Oh, 100%, of course they will.
Merson has experienced it. You've got a problem. It's an illness. So I would be going, look, you're earning fortunes. You've got everything you would ever want for in your life. To have all that money in your pocket, but you're throwing it away. And we, people who haven't had the illness, can't understand it. Merson has it, and he's very open on that.
But the thing is, what I would say, that was my one release, playing football. If they'd have took that away from me, God knows where I'll be. So for me, I would play him. I would play him and get out there, and for that hour and a half, he can go and express himself and do what he's very good at. And he is a top player, he is a top player.
Because he's going to get banned anyway, Merson, isn't he?
Yeah, they will because of the rule, and they don't understand. So it does my head in. It really does my Swede. It does my head in. You're talking with people that haven't got a clue about illnesses, and they're judging people when it's not right.
And I think that's I played with a player who was like that, a really young player. And I think the only people you can speak to is people who've gone through it.
Yeah.
You can ask us questions. People at home, like I said, won't be able to understand it. People who've gone through it can, and they're the only people you can speak to, in my opinion.
It's difficult for the football club side because
Massively.
what the players, what they need to do on these players now is almost impossible to detect, especially if they're not if they're illegal gambling sites, which this supposedly was. They're not. It's hard to track. It's hard to find, and you spend an awful lot of money on these players. And then once they get banned the first time, what do they do with them the second time round? If they get caught again, because like Merce says, it is an illness. It's not as easy as just turning the tap on and off. If they get caught again and someone spends an awful lot of money on that individual, you're wasting your money.
Well said, chaps. And Merce, as ever, thanks for being so open and honest. We'll find out around about 2 o'clock whether indeed Sandro Tonali starts for their home game against Crystal Palace a little bit later on.